Welcome to episode 57 of the Gambots podcast. I'm your host, Eric, and this is my co-host.
It's Christian.
On this week's episode, we are recapping our highs and lows of 2019. Christian, 2019 was a little bit of an interesting year, at least on the video game front, where I don't think it was one of the best years ever, but I think it was a fine year. But I want to start at movies first. How do you think this year looked in movies?
It was pretty good. Honestly, I remember about this time last year making a comment about how I think we'd lived through Marvel's best year ever with Infinity War and Black Panther and like Spider-Verse and a couple others. And I think this year was a little bit of a drop-off. I mean, we didn't really have that many Marvel movies. Endgame obviously is really an incredible piece of filmmaking, but other than that, as far as Marvel stuff goes, it was a little less. On the other hand, I did like a lot of the other like non-franchise stuff that came out this year.
Right, and just stepping back on Marvel too, in 2018, not only were there those huge movies, you also had Spider-Man come out on the PS4, which was an amazing game, and the only real Marvel game that came out this year was Marvel Ultimate Alliance, I think 4, and it came out only as a Switch exclusive, so that was a little weird. And then in 2020, we're actually getting an Avengers game that seems to be taking some notes from Destiny on its design, so it'll be interesting to see how that turns out.
Yeah, I gotta say, like, for a year-end wrap-up, I'm not one of those people that typically gets like the year wrong after the new year. Like, I'm usually fairly aware of what the date is, but I was doing like scrolling back through our episodes to look at what we reviewed and when things came out, and I was consistently being like, oh yeah, 2018, that's this year, and having to like, no, it's not.
Yeah, and so I've been listening to the past episodes because we've been uploading them to YouTube, and I want to make sure they upload properly. We actually talked about a fair number of movies this year, and you actually saw more than we talked about. Do you want to go over what you've actually seen this year?
Yeah, we can do some quick ones here. I watched, at least I made a quick list here of what I saw in theaters, so I'm not counting anything that I happened to watch on streaming. So of what was released in theaters this year, I watched 43 movies. I talked about a little over half of them on this podcast, which was nice.
Was there any ones that we didn't talk about that you're like, man, I wish we had talked about that, either for good or bad reasons?
One or two. Detective Pikachu, that was fun this year. I enjoyed the CG, although Ditto turns into people and they still have the little like dead beady Ditto eyes. That was very unsettling. Not a big fan of that. But the rest of the movie was pretty fun. Yesterday was I guess a musical? It's more a movie with music in it, and it's about a world where the Beatles never existed, but one guy can still remember them, so he writes and publishes all the Beatles music on his own. A little silly on its face, but it's full of Beatles music, so I can't really knock it that much. It was a fun watch. And I guess the only other one that's really worth mentioning is Hustlers with Jennifer Lopez and Constance Wu, and that was just so much fun. Like, I really wish I'd had a chance to dive into that a little further, but it was a very fun movie. I definitely recommend everybody check it out.
Yeah, I think you had mentioned it to me before, but I actually don't know very much about that one.
Yeah, it's based on a true story. It's about these strippers who start like, I guess, drugging and embezzling money from the like Wall Street guys who come into the strip club as clients, and then they get mega rich doing that and then eventually obviously go to jail. But it was fun because it's a movie full of just normal people. Like, there are no good guys in this movie. Like, everybody's kind of sucks, but you still end up rooting for them because they're like, we're just trying to pay our bills and we're taking money from these Wall Street guys. Like, it was ridiculous, but it was fun.
So, of all the movies we talked about, we did talk about more than 20, but of the ones that were released actually in 2019, do you know what our 5 highest rated by Rotten Tomatoes was?
Yeah, I've got 5 highest and 5 lowest here. Our highest rated one, tied at 97%, is Knives Out and Booksmart. We got 2 of them.
So I actually ended up, because you talked about it first, I didn't watch that. I watched it when it came to Hulu. I ended up really liking that one.
Yeah, I was really happy with Booksmart. It was very weirdly nostalgic. Like, I mean, we did get into it a little more earlier in the year, but Knives Out was just super super fun. Very Clue and Murder on the Orient Express kind of kept me on my toes.
Right. What else is up there?
95% was Peanut Butter Falcon, which I did not watch, but you did.
Right. I mean, I really like that movie, and I'm going to talk about it a little bit later in the show, so I will hold off on saying any more about it now.
And then tied at 92%, we had Fighting with My Family and Ford versus Ferrari.
Right, and that, I mean, Fighting with My Family is another one you had watched first, and then I ended up watching down the line. I also ended up really liking that one. I completely forgot that came out this year.
Yeah, it was real early. Like, I was going back, writing all these down a little bit ago, and there were some surprises as far as Rotten Tomatoes stuff goes. Fighting with My Family being at 92% is definitely one of them, because, I mean, I wouldn't have put it that high.
Right, like, I liked it. I don't think I would put it as, like, one of the 5 best movies we talked about this year, though. Ford vs. Ferrari was also good, but, again, I don't know if it's, like... it's not one of my top movies of the year.
Yeah.
And so... looking at the lowest on the Rotten Tomatoes score, the 5th lowest one we talked about was Murder Mystery. That one starred, I think it was Jennifer Aniston and Adam Sandler.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you ever got around to watching that one, but I enjoyed it, but 45% sounds about right for it.
Yeah, that's about what I was gathering. Most of the reviews kind of just said, like, it's fine.
The 4th lowest was at 42% Godzilla King of Monsters, which I think is rated way high. Of the, I mean, I think it's much worse than that. At 42%, which I think is now criminally underrated, is Stuber, the movie starring Dave Bautista and Kumail Nanjiani. I really liked that one.
That was one of the surprises for me. I couldn't believe it was still down at 42.
We had 22% Playing with Fire, which we actually talked about a couple weeks ago, starring John Cena.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm actually not surprised by the worst one because of how much you said you hated it, but Hellboy is at 17%, and that is the lowest rated one in which we watched. At least these are all theatrical releases, right? Or did we get Netflix stuff in there too?
No, these were all just theatricals. I mean, okay, Murder Mystery was a Netflix original, I guess. But yeah, the spread was pretty wide there. Like, it's 45, 42, 42, 22, 17. Like, we didn't really look at anything middle of the road, I guess. But yeah, Playing with Fire at 22 is still disappointing. But yeah, Hellboy at 17, honestly, that may even be too high.
Right. I'm just because you said it's so bad. It's on HBO right now. I might watch it at some point.
It's a mess.
All right, so getting into what critics thought were the top movies, what are your top 5 movies of this year?
This was tough. Like, I really liked a lot of the stuff that we talked about. I really liked a lot of the stuff that I watched, even that I didn't talk about. Endgame, obviously, for me is way, way up there. And so these are kind of going to be in no particular order. But Endgame, as the culmination of like 11 years of filmmaking, is really just... it's the first of its kind, and we kind of talked about that back in April, and I'm just kind of blown away by it. Frozen 2, I think, really surprised me. I was really looking forward to it just based on the trailer. I think the trailer was really well done, got me amped up for it, and the movie did not disappoint. I was really, really in on Frozen 2. Obviously, Hobbs and Shaw. Been looking forward to that for like a year now, and that really came through for me. And the big surprise was then Dora.
Right. I remember you just being like, because I remember the previews for this and being like, this doesn't look good. And you're just going, dude, check this out. It's amazing. And it was.
Yeah, we late nighted it, and I like watching it after hours, and we just were staring at the screen like, this has no right to be as good as it is. Also, I put at the bottom of my list, maybe Cats.
Yeah, I'm surprised seeing that as one of your top movies of the year.
I mean, if you look a couple columns over on the spreadsheet under worst items of the year, also maybe Cats.
Yeah, so it seems like you have a real love-hate relationship with that one.
It's very, very weird. Like, I'm committed to talking about it next week, so we'll be able to get into it, like a deeper dive about it, because even I've seen it twice now, and I still have very few words to describe the experience of watching that movie.
That's great. Anything else before we move on to my top five?
Nah, man.
So my top five, I'm going to say I think my fifth rated movie was Stuber, which we just said was one of the lowest critically received ones. I love this movie. I thought it was a great take on like an 80s or 90s action movie. Dave Bautista is amazing. I really like most of the stuff that he's in. Kumail Nanjiani's hilarious. It's 95 minutes, so it's a quick watch. So I actually do want to point out my top five are not necessarily the five movies I think that are best. It's like my five favorite movies, and I gauge that by like, would I rewatch these more than like one, again and again? And I would definitely rewatch Stuber, and it's a quick watch. It's just so much fun. I can't believe it's at 42%.
Yeah, for sure. I would. Is it somewhere? Is it on like Hulu or HBO or something? Because I would definitely watch that again.
Let's look.
It might be.
It is currently not streaming anywhere, unfortunately, because most people, when I talked about it, did not know what it was either, which is very unfortunate because it's so good. Going with my fourth movie of the year, like you, I am a big fan of Hobbs and Shaw. I was a little bit disappointed in it with regards to like the Fast and Furious franchise, just because I think Fast and Furious like 5, 6, and 7 were just amazing. And so this was a little bit of a drop off, but I thought like the whole like Jason Statham and The Rock dynamic was great. And it's just like a fun action movie. So that was, I did really enjoy that one. Also, listening to the How Did This Get Made podcast
Yes.
after watching it, like, just made my day.
Absolutely.
I think my third favorite movie of the year was Always Be My Maybe on Netflix. We did not end up talking about this one, but it stars Randall Park and Ali Wong, and it's like a romantic comedy, which is a genre I normally hate. But this one works so well. In it, Randall Park has a fake band that has some really good songs, including one called I Punch Keanu Reeves, which I actually listen to sometimes at work. I think it's that good.
Yeah, I listen to, what is it? I think it's called Bounce Back. It's on my Spotify. Yeah. I listen to that every now and then.
Right, like, it's such a good movie. I suggest anyone who hasn't watched it, check it out. It's one of those where I'm not a fan of that genre, and it's hilarious. Ali Wong and Randall Park are great in it. My second favorite movie this year was John Wick 3 Parabellum. I think this was much better than the second John Wick. I still think the first John Wick's like the best of those three, but again, like, I think this may be the best new action franchise of like the 2010s. Like, those movies are so much fun. Keanu Reeves is amazing in it, and I didn't realize he's actually in 2 of the movies in my top 5 because he's also in Always Be My Maybe. So real big year for Keanu.
I feel like it's only a matter of time before he's in like a Hobbs and Shaw movie too.
Oh, I mean, I think it's like rumored he's going to be the main bad guy in the next Hobbs and Shaw.
He's so happy.
I mean, next year or the year after, he's doing Bill and Ted and the new Matrix reboot or something. Like, he's in both of those.
It's Matrix 4 and John Wick 4 come out on the same day.
Oh my gosh, he's going to dominate the box office that day.
Yeah.
And then my top movie of the year by far, I love this movie. I actually am probably going to end up buying it, was the Peanut Butter Falcon starring Shia LaBeouf. This movie was amazing. It's about Shia LaBeouf and a person who has like cognitive disabilities who wants to become a wrestler, and it's like a Mark Twain-esque adventure. The music in it is all like made just for the movie. The scenery, the shots in it are great. Like, this is by far like a movie that actually touched me, whereas I think the other ones are fun. Like, I actually felt something from this movie, which doesn't happen too often in movies. So I suggest anyone who has a chance to see it to check it out. Like, this is like heads in a way. Like, not only do I really like this movie, I actually think it's like a well-made and a good movie.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try and find this somewhere because you have talked it up a bit, and I'm real curious about it.
Yeah. It reminds me a little bit of Little Miss Sunshine. Like, I get the same vibes from it, and
Yeah.
Little Miss Sunshine might be like one of my top 5 movies of all time, so I think that's why it resonates with me, because that's like an adventure-ish movie too. So I get those vibes from it. So I feel like if you like Little Miss Sunshine, you'll probably like that one. Do you have any honorable mentions that you didn't make the top, like your top 5, but you think were like good?
Booksmart is probably on there. Knives Out is probably on there. How to Train Your Dragon 3 definitely made me cry. A very good end to that trilogy. That's probably going to be about it as far as that goes.
I'm pretty similar to you. I have Knives Out on there. I really like Knives Out, but like I said about like my top movies on rewatchability, I don't know. I don't think murder mysteries have the same rewatchability factor as other movies, just because part of the intrigue is figuring out who did it. I also have Dora on there because, like you, it was like a surprise hit for me. It just wasn't one of my top 5. And then I have Avengers Endgame, which I really liked, but its runtime makes it one of those things where I don't know if I'm ever actually going to watch it again.
Yeah, there was a lot of conversation I remember having about considering Endgame as a movie on its own versus considering Endgame as just like the culmination of all those other movies. I think when you look at it as a movie on its own, it's not quite as strong as it is if you consider it in the context of like everything else.
Right, you need to have all the background information from every other movie, I think, to really appreciate
Yeah, it
it.
doesn't necessarily stand on its own 2 feet.
Anything else you want to say about movies?
I don't think so. There's still a few that came out this year that I still want to try and get to, but I'm determined to let Cats be the last movie I saw this decade, so I'll be watching like Little Women and that stuff after New Year's.
Nice. So moving on to television in 2019, we didn't really talk about them television shows on the podcast as much, but I still do want to point out a couple things. Was there anything that you watched that you really enjoyed?
Nothing really crazy good. I'm obviously reserving judgment on Good Place until it ends in a couple of weeks. The only real TV show that sprung to mind that I watched like cover to cover this year, that came out this year, was Four Weddings and a Funeral on Hulu. It was a fun little show. As a person who doesn't like romantic comedies, maybe not for you, but it was funny. I thought the cast was good, and it's, I guess, based on Four Weddings and a Funeral, the movie, which I've never seen, so I wasn't really sure where it was going, and I was happy with it.
So for me, like the standout show this year, which I think I've said on the show before, I don't watch a ton of television. So the one thing I watched that kept my attention was The Watchmen on HBO. I really like this one. And I read the comic back in, I think, 2008, 2009 when I was in college, and I really liked the comic. And then the movie came out, and I hated the movie. I thought it butchered it. So I was real hesitant to actually, like, go all in on this. And after I watched the first episode on it, I wasn't sold, but I stuck with it. And by the third episode, like, I was sold on this television series. Like, one of the best episodes, which it's going to be light spoilers, so no one, if you don't want to flip ahead probably about 1 minute. There's one, sorry, Christian, do you want me to spoil this for you?
No, I don't care.
Okay. So in the comics, Dr. Manhattan's like a big part of it. He's like a Superman, basically. And there's a chapter about his creation where it's like flipping back and forth through time and all these different things are happening. They do an episode that mimics that perfectly, where it's like his perspective jumping back and forth through a bunch of different story beats, and they pull it off so well as a perfect like nod to the comic. Like the episode's great. It's probably my favorite of the season. I know this series got a lot of flack because they're like, we don't need this, and I honestly I was in the camp of that to begin with, but it won me over. I think it's amazing. I talk like people I know who don't even read the comics or really watch TV like this or superhero shows got into it to the point that like they got the comic and then started reading the comic. Like it was really well done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was told it was great, and I watched like maybe the fourth episode. I was over at my friend's house, and I couldn't get into it, but I would definitely allow for the possibility that it's because I was starting on the fourth episode.
Right. I think it's definitely one you need to watch in order because each episode kind of builds off of each other, I think.
Yeah.
The other show that I'm really liking right now, but I haven't finished, I'm 3 of 8 episodes in, is The Witcher, which I think I saw you Snapchatted. Have you been watching this too?
I have not. I keep meaning to get to it, but it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, I like it. It seems actually very divisive on the internet where critics don't seem to like it, but general fans and Reddit seem to. I think it's fun, and I was real hesitant about this too. It was one of those where I was like, Henry Cavill, I don't know. I wasn't the biggest fan of his as Superman, but I think he's fine in this, and so far it's been good.
Well, that's, I think, the chief problem I'm having with it now is every time I see screenshots of it on Tumblr or on Twitter, I just think it's Superman.
Right. Once it gets going, I think he does a better job. My biggest problem with him is he growls all of his lines, so it's kind of hard for me to hear. I have to turn it up, but I just think that's how Geralt's supposed to talk, I guess. But the creator of the book series tweeted, like, Henry Cavill is amazing at this. He is the embodiment of Geralt. Like, we found our Aragon or something like that. Like, he's all behind Henry Cavill.
Well, good. Yeah, I'm definitely going to get to it. Like I said, I didn't watch a lot of TV this year, I guess, at least not that came out this year. That's something I want to get to. Mandalorian, something that I'm like only 3 episodes in, so I didn't want to put it on my list despite really liking what I've seen so far just because I'm not even halfway through it yet.
Right. I like The Mandalorian. Again, another one I think I would like. I think I have 1 or 2 episodes to finish up here that I'm going to do tomorrow, but I feel like you have to be a fan of Star Wars to really get into The Mandalorian. Mm-hmm. All right, and now moving on to video games in 2019. Now, I actually had a pretty big year on video games. I platinumed 19 games, and some of them were better than others. We talked about almost all of them on the podcast, except for Trover Saves the Universe, which we'll talk about in the next couple weeks. That game's hilarious. But of the games actually released in 2019, I have played 12. I played Mortal Kombat 11, Anthem, Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, Remnant from the Ashes, Greedfall, Team Sonic Racing, Division 2, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, Pokemon Sword and Shield, Mario Maker 2, Trover Saves the Universe, and Devil May Cry 5. And so when we get into like top games, I'll only be picking from those. And I think I only pick games that I platinum because I feel like those are ones I put enough time into to actually render a verdict on them. Like, I really liked what I played at Devil May Cry 5, but I probably am through like 4 of 20 missions, you know? Like, I don't think it's enough to give an opinion on it. So, did you play any 2019 games that you particularly liked?
I think I only played one 2019 game.
I have a guess.
I played more video games this year. To be fair, I played more video games this year than I've played in several years before combined. Like, I bought a PlayStation 4 in February, basically just so I could play Kingdom Hearts 3, which is the one. But in order to justify buying that for that game, I told myself I had to make it worth it. So I have played a fair number of games, but it's all been old stuff that I've just, like, the remastered. So, like, Spyro and Crash remastered, Final Fantasy X remastered. I'm going through Assassin's Creed 2 remastered, Castlevania. So it's all old stuff besides Kingdom Hearts 3, which I really enjoyed. More than I was afraid I was going to. Less than I hoped I was going to. I mean, we talked more in depth about it back in whenever it came out, March or February, and um, I guess my chief complaint is that it's just too short. Like, I was able to get basically the whole way through the game in about a weekend. I never did platinum it because it gets real grindy at the end, but
Right.
yeah, like the Pirates of the Caribbean world, maybe the best world that Kingdom Hearts has ever had. So I was real happy with certain elements of it, and only kind of I was not unhappy with anything, just left kind of wanting more in a few other places.
Yeah, I was actually going to ask you because it's been 6+ months since you've actually beaten it, and you're a huge fan of Kingdom Hearts. Like, how do you feel now that like the Sora saga is basically over?
I'm not convinced that it is.
Oh, really?
Yeah, like did you finish it?
I never even
Oh,
played it.
jeez. Okay, well they do leave it as on a cliffhanger.
Oh, I thought. See, I thought this was supposed to like, or I guess it completes the Xehanort saga.
Yeah,
I should say.
yeah. So I'm not sure if we'll hear from Sora again or not. I think we probably will. But there's a DLC coming out next month for like $25 or $30 that I'm gonna jump on. So that
I think you played Kyrie in that, right?
yeah, I believe so. And you're supposed to explore the backgrounds of some of the characters who have like mystery still behind them, because you only really know the history of about seven, I think, of the Organization 13 members, and then there's a couple of them that you're not really sure who they are or why they're important. So we'll see. I'm holding my breath, hoping that they don't screw it up on the follow through. But yeah, I'm gonna have to play it again because I've forgotten some things. It was kind of a sprint instead of a marathon, and so I don't really retain a lot of the plot elements when that happens. And I've played the older
Right.
games 2 or 3 times, so they're really in there. But yeah, I'll probably play it again maybe next summer, and we'll see.
I'm stuck on this because I want to play it, but I need a refresher. And a refresher for me is like I want to get the Kingdom Hearts The Story So Far collection that is all the other games and play them, but I don't want to platinum them all because the platinums in at least the first Kingdom Heart is so annoying because they don't stack. Like, you have to beat the game on easy, normal, and hard mode, and
Ooh,
then subsequent ones, like, I don't know if they adopted the practice of trophy stacking or not. If you just play it on the highest one, you get the other ones.
yeah.
Like, they're just kind of a pain. So I'm like, well, maybe I'll play it on my Xbox One, but I never got around to it. So it's like in limbo for me right now. It's like I haven't played it since 2000. Like, I haven't played a Kingdom Hearts game since 2006.
Yeah.
So
My roommate started playing Kingdom Hearts 3 just because he's been here and my PlayStation 4 was on the TV, and so he started and he's like, I only ever played 1 and 2. I never played any of the in between games, and I'm like, ooh, you're gonna be confused. And so he started
right,
watching YouTube videos about what he's missed, and he's like, this is crazy. Like, yeah, I know.
yeah. Man, my unpopular opinion is I feel like Kingdom Hearts should have ended after one. Like, I think the ending of one was perfect. It was tragic with Sora like saving the day and then not being able to go home. Like, I love that ending, and everything they've done since then has gotten me like less and less intrigued by the series.
Yeah, I heard it once described as like a D&D Disney homebrew that just got out of control.
That is a perfect description. I don't know, like my biggest complaint is like he's just weaker every time. It's like you're a monster at the end of the first one, and the second one they're like you were asleep for a year, you lost all your
Yep.
powers. It just that like non-continuity like that kind of bugs me.
Yeah, I don't even know if they bothered trying to explain it at the beginning of the third one, or if they were just like, you fell asleep in Dream Drop Distance and lost all your power. Because I think in the beginning of Dream Drop Distance, they let you be great. And
Right.
then, like, you fall into a coma because you try to get possessed by the bad guy. And then I think that's how, like, he wakes up and the what's his name? Yensid is like, oh, well, it's a shame that happened. I guess you're starting from scratch again.
And like I know why you do that for a video game because obviously you need to grow. It's just like narratively you're a beast and then you're
Yeah.
like I'm struggling with this same like basic heartless again. Like I should be killing them.
Although, to be fair, at the beginning of Kingdom Hearts 3, They let you have a lot. Like, you've got powers that you never had in any of the other games. And so I think they did a good-ish job with it. Like, they let you kind of be a beast, but at the same time, I guess the enemies are just stronger than you've encountered before, and so you still have to continue to grow.
So for my top three games, one and two is a little bit harder for me to pick, but my third favorite game this year is definitely Trover Saves the Universe. Now this was created specifically for VR, but you can play it without it, so I played it on the PS4 without VR. This is maybe the funniest game I've ever played. I don't know. Do you watch Rick and Morty, Christian?
Oh, I watched like 2 seasons maybe.
So Justin Roiland is a co-creator of Rick and Morty, and he has a studio called Squanch Games. He made this one and voiced most of the characters, and it just seeps in Rick and Morty humor. So if you like that kind of humor, you're going to love this game. If you don't like that humor, you're going to hate this game. The selling point of this game is it's just funny, and it calls out a bunch of random things. Like at one point, I you like can just attack random people, and the guy calls you out, and he's like, "Oh wow, we're killing people. Like, okay, that's pretty messed up, but let's do it." And it's just like a bunch of little things like that. Or there's like characters who will just talk for like 5 minutes if you don't move, of just like continuous dialogue, which is great. I remember one is like this guy wants you to push another man's house off the ledge, and then you get there, and the guy's like, "Look, I'll give you whatever you're looking for if you go and push the guy who told me to's house off the ledge." And so like when you pick, you get guilted either way. So like one is the guy is capturing like pregnant women and eating their embryos, and so if you like push it off the cliff, he's like, "Wow, you just killed 5 pregnant women," and it's like this whole thing about how you're a monster. But if you go and push the other guys off, he's like, "Wow, you're just letting that guy sit there and eat babies." Okay, okay. It's just like does the perfect like catch 22s on everything, and it's hilarious. So my between one and two, I have a hard time picking. My top two games are either Bloodstained Ritual of the Night or Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. And why I'm a little bit torn on this, if I was picking my favorite platinum of the year, it's definitely Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. But if I'm just picking my favorite game for like, you're just completing it, you don't care about a platinum, I actually think Bloodstained Ritual of the Night's better. It just has a lot more of a grindy platinum that kind of drug the game out. Like the normal game I beat in 10 to 12 hours, but with the platinum I played another 12 hours just grinding alone. So that kind of ruined it for me. But like we talked about both of these, but a quick recap: Bloodstained Ritual of the Night is by Keiji Igarashi, who is famous for the Castlevania series. It's definitely inspired by that. It plays like that. You collect power ups and you go through and you get a lot stronger. And 2D, it's just 2D action exploration. It's very good. And Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, I think we talked about this 2 weeks ago. It's a great Star Wars game. I enjoyed it more than I think I liked Rise of the Skywalker. It's heavily like Uncharted and Dark Souls inspired. Like it's just fun. It's easier than Dark Souls, but it's a really good Star Wars game. And so those are my top two games of the year. All right, and finally, we're just going to combine everything together. Christian, what are the worst things you've seen or played or read or whatever in 2019?
Worst movie of the year without question was Joker.
Yeah, that's one we didn't talk about on the show, and I never actually saw it. So it's generally, I think, had pretty good ratings. What didn't you like about it?
Everything. Like honestly, like it's rare that I leave a theater and I'm like, wow, that movie had literally nothing that I wanted in it, and that's how I felt about Joker. Like, it is a movie that I wish I had not seen.
Huh. You did not like the direction they took Joker.
Yeah, I thought the acting was weak. I thought the story was awful. I thought the directing was bad. Like, the cinematography, I guess, was okay, but I mean, it was just... Yeah, there was nothing I wanted in that movie, and I only watched it because it had so much commentary and controversy up brewing, and I was like, well, I guess I have to see it. And I walked out and I'm like, man, I wish I hadn't wasted the time.
The worst movie theatrical release I saw this year was Godzilla King of Monsters, which we had talked about on the show. And honestly, Christian, I cannot tell you much about the movie. All I remember is someone farted in the theater when we saw it, and that is like the highlight of the movie for me.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to try and find it somewhere because I did want to see it. I like a lot of the people that are in it, but and then especially after you tell me how bad it is, like it's how I feel. We were talking this weekend about Cats and how we keep telling people how terrible it is, and then that just makes people want to see it, and it's like it feels like a trap. Like,
Right.
you can't tell people how bad it is because then they're like, oh, well, now I have to see it. It's like, no, you don't.
Right. The worst part about Godzilla to me is like I haven't seen Cats yet. I'm going to. I feel like Cats is going to hopefully be like a fun bad. Godzilla was just like a boring bad.
Yeah, I'll say this right now for Cats. Like, it is a fun bad, but only if you watch it with people. Like, you have to be in there with friends or something. The first time I watched it alone, and you don't do that. You'll be terrified and upset and disgusted. Like, you need support in there with you.
Speaking of boring bad, the other worst movie I think we watched this year was The Night Before Christmas from like 2 weeks ago. And I felt horrible because the writer of the movie like retweeted our tweet about the episode, and she's clearly like very proud that she had worked on this. And I was like, I really hope she doesn't listen to that episode because we just savaged the movie. I felt so bad about it after the fact, but it's still pretty boring. It's weird. People on Twitter love it though. They're like, this is my jam, like Hallmark movie. I just do not maybe think I was the audience.
I was gonna say it's not like we were the only ones who were thrashing it. Like, she had to know that it's got like a 20% on Rotten Tomatoes or something.
Right. I just felt bad because I did not think anyone with the movie like associate really would ever like be like, these guys hate my movie. I felt so bad. And then in the video game realm, I think the worst game I played in 2019 from actually 2019 was Anthem. That was just like a huge mess rolling out with really not going anywhere. There was like allegations of abuse from the studio. There's a ton they didn't handle well. If you want a good read, check out Jason Schreier from Kotaku. He has a very long article about the development cycle for that, and it's very interesting to see how everything just went wrong in that could have. And what resulted was just a boring game. That's, again, like, it's the sin of why these are the worst. Like, it was just boring.
Yeah, this was a hard list for me because on the weekly streaming movies that we've been picking, we watched some real terrible movies, but a lot of them didn't come out in 2019, so I didn't want to put them on. Like, Lobster was awful.
Right. Well, I was going to say, like, what of like the things we've picked, do you have like one that you're like, this is by far the worst thing I've watched?
Yeah, I mean, Lobster was up there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's The Lobster. Like, I would rather watch The Night Before Christmas than watch The Lobster again.
Pretty rough to get through.
Yeah, that one was.
It was just boring too. So long.
It was. Oh my gosh, yeah. It was, and we had to pay for it. It was very unfortunate because I was excited about that one. Like, I thought it was going to be like juicy gossip about the early D&D days, and it wasn't that at all. Like, barely had anything about D&D in it. Yeah. Alright guys, and now Christian and I are going to figure out who wins the Amazon review game for the year. We both ended up with the same score at the end of the year by some random chance. So now we are doing a sudden death battle. Christian and I have 3 movies that we have reviews for, and instead of asking yes or no questions, I'm going to read a review. Christian can either guess or he can pass. And then if he passes, he'll read a review to me, and I can either guess and I pass. If I guess and if one of us guesses and gets it wrong, we lose, and the other person has a chance to win the game. Or if the other person guesses like before the other person and they miss. So if like Christian guesses on number 2 and I don't get it on number 2, Christian wins. So Christian, are you ready? Do you want to go first or second? Do you want to guess first or second?
First.
Okay. Also, and I want to clarify, for this week, we have picked movies that we talked about on the podcast that were released in 2019. Okay. I was really worried this would be hard to watch with the almost lifelike CGI, but it wasn't. Also, I really appreciated the action sequences. The movements made sense, unlike many movies where they just use so many cutscenes and close-ups you don't really get a sense of the movement in the scene. Not so here. Great fight scenes. Did feel a bit rushed in spots, but they are just trying to adapt a comic series. Christian, would you like to guess? Or would you like to pass?
I'm going to guess
All right.
Hellboy. Oh, God.
No. Do you want the second review? Actually, you need to read yours and see if I'm able to guess on one.
If you liked The Other Guys, then this movie will be for you. Anyone who watched the trailer, then watched the movie, then claimed waste of time and money, you embarrass yourself by letting us all in on your poor decision making. The trailer screams stupid comedy, which is what you get with this. Several laugh-out-loud moments and lines with some decent action and a silent but deadly vehicle.
I would guess Stuber.
Ah, man.
Do you want the second review? I
Sure.
think I picked a good one for the first one. Girlfriend and I came back from the theater and loved it. I don't know why some are complaining about the eyes, but they were appropriate and made the character look otherworldly and beautiful. A lot of fun, and I'm buying the Blu-ray the day it comes out.
Oh, man, I should have gone for the second one. Oh, well.
We talked about the eyes so much.
I forgot that was a comic series. Like, I was running back through my mind trying to figure out what comic movies we had talked about, and Hellboy was the only thing that jumped to mind. Oh,
I thought you would have guessed, like, Endgame. Maybe.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even consider those comic movies anymore.
Yeah, at this point. Alright guys, thanks for checking out our episode. Before we head out, Christian, what will you be checking out this week?
Well, like I said, I'm determined to let Cats be the last thing I watch this decade. It feels appropriate. But that only necessarily means like a day and a half longer than when we're recording this. So I'm probably going to use a lot of my time at the movie theater. The Grudge comes out on Friday, and I'm kind of a fan of the original, and I like John Cho, so I'm going to watch the new one. I need to get caught up on other stuff. I want to watch Little Women. I want to cruise through Mandalorian and maybe start up on Witcher, so we'll see. It might be a busy week. I might put some things off.
Yeah, I'm on vacation right now, so I'm hoping to just catch up on a lot of stuff. Finishing the last 5 episodes of The Witcher. I'm going to see Cats, and I'm currently playing Yakuza 0, which I love on the PlayStation 4, and I'm thinking about picking up The Witcher 3 on the Switch, just because I'm getting so into the series right now. But we'll see. I'm holding off in case that's an impulse buy, because it's like $20 everywhere else on the Switch. It's like $60, so I don't know if it's worth it for that.
Yeah.
Otherwise, not much. We are working on getting like written reviews up and stuff, so I have like 5 or 6 reviews right now. I need to like do artwork banners for them, which is kind of like I'm dragging my feet on because they're a little more challenging. So my goal by the end of by the end of the week is to have those up, as well as get some more of our older episodes up on YouTube. Alright guys, thanks for checking out our episode. If you have any questions or would like to suggest a movie for our Amazon review game in 2020, you can reach us at gambots.blog@gmail.com, or we're at Gambots Network on Twitter. Otherwise, if you're listening somewhere where you can either rate or subscribe, we'd appreciate it, as that helps us get the word out about the podcast. Otherwise, thanks for listening in, guys.
Thank you.